LEGO minifigures have long been known for their iconic yellow smile and overall friendly demeanor. However, some take things to a much darker place. Let's explore LEGO's most disturbing and controversial minifigures, like this Joker that is literally based on a comic where the Joker is giving out poisonous cotton candy to kids. Yikes. More on this a bit later. One of the most concerning LEGO minifigures I've ever come across can be found in the pirate ship ambush set from The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. With 756 pieces and an impressive 9 minifigures, this set was well worth the slightly high $100 retail price. While the build itself is a great recreation of the ship from the film, the real stars here are the minifigures. Of course, we've got a few members of the Fellowship, but it's the other minifigures that earned a spot in today's video. First up, there's this orc with a rather creepy face. Something about all the folds and wrinkles on the back of his head is just super unsettling, but that's just the beginning. The set also included these 2 soldiers of the dead, which each came with this deeply disturbing double-sided face, as well as unique torsos and legs. The coolest thing about these guys though is that these are the only minifigures to ever get these helmets and capes in this sand green color. This is one of LEGO's rarest colors, so getting these parts here was a real treat. Today, these 2 minifigures will set you back over $100 for the pair if you want to buy them. However, the absolute creepiest minifigure from this set is the terrifying King of the Dead. This guy's glow-in-the-dark head is unique to this set, as is this sand green version of a minifigure crown. One of the most notable parts of this figure has got to be his torso. While this guy seems to be wearing some kind of robe, we can clearly see an entire ribcage underneath it, as well as a spine on the back. This is a solid recreation of the character from the films, and it's a seriously creepy minifigure. Another spooky specter haunting a LEGO set can be found in the massive Firehouse Headquarters set based on the original Ghostbusters movies. Obviously, this set was going to feature at least a few ghoulish guests, but in the end, a few of these are closer to comical than creepy. For example, Slimer is just too goofy to be anything close to scary, and the zombie driver just seems so happy and chill, although he was much creepier on screen. Also included were these 2 spirits, which may remind you of the ghosts from LEGO Ninjago Season 5 sets. But of all of these apparitions, there's one that's genuinely scary. The library ghost seems perfectly fine at first, a kind spirit of an old lady with a rather bored expression. That is, until you make too much noise in the library and she reveals her true nature. This is a great use of a double-sided head, and this is one of my favorite parts on today's list. Much like the zombie driver, LEGO turned down the creepiness factor compared to the film, but that might be for the best. This character had the potential to be the creepiest minifigure ever. However, it's hardly just ghosts that bring a little extra horror to LEGO sets, because, you see, LEGO has a long history of scary aliens across its several space lines. Galaxy Squad was an incredible theme that ran for only a single year and released a total of 12 sets. Each of the villains in this theme were based on some sort of insect, collectively referred to as the insectoids. But LEGO didn't hold back when it came to turning up the fear factor, especially if you're not a fan of creepy crawlies. For starters, we got 2 variants of these alien bugoids in olive green and dark red, which both feature giant bug eyes. There's also the winged mosquitoid, and this guy is seriously scary if you think about it. First of all, no one likes mosquitoes, and secondly, this guy has wings, so good luck running away. Third, and most frightening, is its massive mosquito proboscis that looks long and strong enough to pierce through even the toughest of spacesuits. Imagine being one of these spacemen and running into a giant mosquito that is literally the same size as you. Yeah, no thanks. That sounds like a terrible experience. But the minifigure that scares me the most has got to be the Mantizoid. This guy is found in the Hive Crawler set. Not only does this guy drive a massive armored tank, he also seems to be carrying a couple of pretty menacing weapons to kick things up a notch. This minifigure is currently worth about $15 to $20 on resale sites like eBay and Bricklink. In fact, whenever I was researching and writing this script, I noticed something a little odd about the Mosquitoid and Mantizoid minifigures. At first glance, these 2 heads both seem to have these antennae on top, but a closer look shows that that's not quite the case. The Mosquitoid head is made up of 3 pieces: the head and 2 antennae. These tiny red elements tend to pop off and get lost, which is why if you browse eBay, you'll notice a lot of images that don't even include them, which is actually quite funny. Meanwhile, the Mantizoid head is just a single large mold with the antennae. Honestly, I have no idea why or how this decision was made, but it struck me as odd enough to be worth mentioning here. While Galaxy Squad only lasted less than a year, it seems that someone at LEGO was still a fan, and we got this alien Beetlezoid in Collectible Minifigures Series 26. This might be the creepiest of the bunch, with its massive mandibles, brooding dark blue color, and some funky shaped legs. However, I do like the design of its beetle wings, which have only ever been used here in this design. But with saying all that, it's time to move on, because there are much more than just giant menacing bugs lurking in the deepest, darkest reaches of space. LEGO Space Police 3 ran from 2009 to 2010 and delivered some of the absolute sickest spaceships that LEGO's ever released. Equally impressive though was this theme's lineup of interstellar bad guys. This is the theme that introduced the fan-favorite Brick Daddy minifigure, everyone's favorite space gangster, and although this guy isn't that creepy, his funky head has some serious potential for creating nightmare fuel, and this seems to be something of a trend in this line. Let me show you. The mysterious Skull Twins appeared in 2 sets, including the incredible Hyperspeed Pursuit set, one of my favorites from this theme. While these two take their names from their skull masks, those masks are actually hiding something much creepier underneath. These two came with matching dual-sided heads, with very bold red eyes and mouths. One side has a face print with 2 eyes, but you can turn the head around to spawn in an extra eye. This way, you can choose whether you want your minifigure to be creepy or extra creepy. Regardless, the creepiest minifigure from this theme by far is the evil Craniac. This guy came in the Space Police Central set, which was one of the largest sets from this theme. This guy features the same creepy skull mask as the Skull Twins, but this one is in a dark red color, like blood, which just adds to the creepiness. Much like the Skull Twins though, the creepiest part is what's hiding beneath the mask. I mean, just look at this. This might just be the single creepiest minifigure face that I've ever seen, and the fact that it only ever appeared in this set is a blessing. This is almost too much. With 6 red eyes and a mouth full of pointy fangs, this thing looks more like a spider than a human, and makes the skull mask look friendly by comparison. This minifigure is quite rare, and so Craniac nowadays can be picked up for $50 to $60 if you're in the market for a little extra fear. Diving from deep space into the deep blue sea, LEGO Atlantis was responsible for some of the company's best ever undersea minifigures, and some of the scariest too. In fact, some may make you feel a bit uncomfortable. While minifigures like the Shark Warrior and the Manta Warrior are a little unsettling, they're barely worth mentioning when compared to the horrors lurking in the depths. The Barracuda Guardian has one of the all-time coolest and creepiest headpieces ever. This single massive element fits over any minifigure torso, transforming it into a terrifying monster ready to eat anything that gets too close to its massive gaping jaw. And we're just getting started. At first glance, the Hammerhead Warrior might not look any scarier than the Shark Warrior mentioned a moment ago, but looking a little closer reveals the danger lurking just beneath the surface. This figure includes this frightening face with its massive mouth and pointy teeth. One thing that's a little funny though is that the LEGO designers gave the head eyes, even though they're covered up by the minifigure's Hammerhead cover. That makes this slightly odd piece incredibly versatile, as it can be added to just about anything. But perhaps the most disturbing and creepiest monster at the bottom of the sea is the Lobster Guardian from the flagship City of Atlantis set. This minifigure is a little odd for a few reasons, such as its massive claws that have only ever appeared in this set. The head is also pretty unusual, since it slides over the top of the torso without adding any height, resulting in a pretty short minifigure. But the torso is also what really sets this minifigure apart from the rest, with its huge mouth sitting in the middle of its chest. And that alone makes this to be one of the most uncomfortable LEGO minifigures to look at. On the topic of mythical monsters, no discussion of disturbing minifigures would be complete without at least mentioning the Demogorgon from the Stranger Things Upside Down set. Overall, this is just a beautiful yet horrifying minifigure design, with its beast legs, totally unique head cover, and even its subtle but fantastic head, which is typically covered up. I really love it when LEGO goes the extra mile in designing a minifigure that will only ever be used once. Now previously I mentioned a few of the creepiest Batman villains out there, but a few of y'all pointed out a handful of Gotham's most wanted that I overlooked, and that totally deserve a spot in this video. This version of Two-Face from the Batman Tumbler vs. Two-Face and the Joker set is perhaps the most realistic version of the villain that LEGO has released, and that degree of realism makes his burns that much creepier, even if he's got nothing on the burnt Anakin minifigure. Seriously, this one just hurts to look at, and is perhaps a bit too far for young kids, but nonetheless, hands down, the creepiest Two-Face minifigure has got to be this version from LEGO Batman Movie's Two-Face Double Demolition set. Everything about this is genuinely horrific. His clothes are melting and fusing with his skin, his face has been partially dissolved by acid, exposing half of his skull, and even his hair is a runny pink mess. I'm not gonna lie, if I went through this, I just might have to turn to a life of crime too. Oh, and I can't ignore this nano figure of Two-Face, which might be the creepiest LEGO figure of this scale ever made. But the single most uncomfortable minifigure to possibly ever be released is this version of the Joker from the DC Superheroes series of collectible minifigures. While the minifigure itself isn't anything too scary, what it represents is enough to make anyone's skin crawl. In the Dark Knight Returns comics in 1986, the Joker pulls off one of his all-time most horrifying crimes. This comic saw the Joker setting up a cotton candy booth at the county fair, where he gave out free candy to all the kids, including an entire troop of young scouts who all died since he had poisoned the cotton candy. So yeah, that's a super dark story behind this minifigure. Also, the idea of a kid buying this minifigure pack at the store and then getting this minifigure feels a bit weird to me, although I bet most people who get this minifigure aren't aware of the backstory and lore behind this specific character. But you see, not every creepy minifigure is a criminal mastermind or terrifying space creature. Sometimes they're just a misunderstood character looking to make new friends, and that's the case with this weird little guy. Meet Dr. Jeremy Hillaryboo, PhD. But who is this guy? Well, I discuss this character and many more of LEGO's weirdest minifigures in this video. Click right now to watch, and don't forget to tap the notification bell when you subscribe so you don't miss my next video.